Hello, everyone. This is David again for the Chicago Smart Podcast for Friday, May 23rd, 2025. I'm going to come in a little hot today, but before I do that, I want to make a quick just announcement. Um, so, thank you to everyone that does listen through Spotify. I'm going to continue to post through Spotify, but I'm going to be exploring this week on how I can also get in through the Apple Podcast platform, just so I can have more options for people to listen to, and also kind of cool to say listen on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcast. So kind of something cool to look for. If that does change, I will then again announce it through Spotify next week. But most likely, I'm going to be posting the show not only here on Spotify, but also through the Apple Podcast platform. Also, too, as I mentioned before in a previous podcast, I'm also exploring maybe during the All-Star break doing an actual YouTube video so you guys can kind of get like a special sort of edition of this podcast through video form. I usually just do it through audio because I don't know if you guys necessarily need to see me to get my opinions, but I thought it'd be something cool to do and maybe something to explore and see how that works, and maybe even put it up through YouTube as well. Besides, if the Apple issue or the Apple solution, I should say, works, and the Spotify, I would have three platforms that I can broadcast my show through, or um, or basically, broadcast my show through and just give everybody a chance to look through different platforms, and also to grow my audience a little bit. But again, if the audience doesn't grow anymore than where it's at right now, not a big deal. I really love doing this. I wish I could do this more, but again, life and work just gets in the way. But I enjoy just talking about topics that I'm interested in, things that I hear other people talk about, whether it be I read it through the Athletic that I subscribe through, or if I hear it on the radio, or if I hear somebody else talking about it or chatter online through social media. I kind of like to get my 2 cents in there as well. So, I mean, honestly, this has all just been really just a dream for me to do all this, and it's been fun. So thank you to everybody that listens. There are some loyal listeners out there, so you guys know who you are. Appreciate it. Besides my kids that I thanked, and my wife who will sometimes give me a mercy listening just to give me those numbers. I appreciate it. So thank you guys. So coming in hot this edition, and the reason I'm coming in so hot is because um, since the last podcast that I've done, I've seen a lot of news and chatter about the what they call the keyboard warriors out there. If you don't know what a keyboard warrior is, it's somebody who talks tough behind the keyboard, but decides that if they were in public, that wouldn't happen. And there's been some threats against some baseball players, specifically around pitching. So a few weeks ago, there was an incident with Lance McCullers Jr. from the Houston Astros. I guess he blew the game. He got some death threats on his life, plus they threatened the life of his family, his wife and his children, if I'm not mistaken. That happened again this week with Liam Hendricks, who you guys might find that name familiar. He used to be the closer for the White Sox. Now he pitches for the Boston Red Sox. He also got some threats on his life, including telling him that they hope that the cancer returns and that he dies from cancer. So these keyboard warriors are getting very brave. They're getting very bold, and that's just very nasty. And even further back than that, there was an issue in the Guardian Stadium with a player from the Red Sox, and I'm sorry I don't have his name at the top of my head right now. Um, he was out in left field, and they basically told him, based on, I don't know if maybe he shared this in the past, which I believe he has shared it in the past in the Red Sox documentary that's on Netflix, where they followed the Red Sox for the entire 2024 season last year. He shared that he had unfortunately, had some suicidal ideations, and he thought about taking his life, which is just, it's sad. He's a young man, and it's sad. And then it doesn't matter what age you are, to have those ideations, that's really, that's just really sad, right? To have those thoughts, it's just really sad. And to get to that point where you feel like your life is not worth it anymore. To have somebody scream that at him from the stands, that they hope he offs himself, that's not needed. You can be angry, you can tell them they suck, you can boo them, you can say what you want to say because you've bought that ticket. but there's a certain level of things that you cannot say. And I think that we as decent human beings know what that is, right? As far as that player from the Red Sox, I'm sorry that happened to him. That person should never be able to come into an MLB stadium, period. I don't care what anybody says. Because if that young man goes and says, well, you know what, you're right, he's having a bad day, you don't know what's going through that person's head. They go home and they take their life. That person's just going to go on with their life and be like, well, who cares, right? It's getting to the point where people are getting way too bold, because I guarantee you that if that young man jumps into the stands because he says, that's it, I'm done with this, and he jumps into the stands, and then there's another melee that happens like the one we had way back when 20 years ago with the Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers, what they call the Ballots of the Palace. That man jumps into those stands, and he either gets hurt or he hurts the man. I'm guaranteeing that man gets punched in the face or something happens to that man. Guess what? He's going to sue Major League Baseball. He's going to sue that Boston Red Sox. He's going to sue that player, because guess what? Well, I can say what I want to say. He shouldn't have came and broke my jaw. Really? A broken jaw is all you're worried about? You know what? Thank goodness he didn't jump into those stands. Thank goodness he didn't take his life. And I pray for that young man that he does not, he doesn't let those thoughts go into his head. I'm not trying to get preachy on here. This is a sports thing. Anybody who knows me personally knows that that personal relationship I have with God. So if you don't, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to. I would hope that, and I pray that God knocks on your heart and has you have that relationship with him. I pray that same thing for that young man for the Boston Red Sox. That happens for him. I'm sorry he's having those thoughts. As far as the two pitchers, Lance McCullers and Liam Hendricks, this is all tied to betting. And I'm not the first one that said it. So this is not an original idea from me. But this is tied to betting, right? These men, or whoever they are, lost money on these games. Big time, right? Don't know what the dollar amount is, but there's no way that you're mad because your team lost. You're going to go that far to go threaten somebody. The Cubs have lost many games, and we know as Cubs fans, Sox fans, whatever fan of whatever team you are, have lost some big games that have broken your heart. I would hope and I would pray that you would not go on social media and go threaten somebody's family over a game. I get it, be angry, call that person a bum, say whatever you want to say, but there is a certain limit that you do not cross. But again, this is all tied to betting. Betting that, by the way, MLB sponsors, right? MLB is a sponsor for these bettings, right? They get a percentage of these bettings. And I did a little research before this that they project that the MLB is going to make about $1.1 billion in revenue from legal sports betting, right? And we see this on every commercial. Every other commercial on Marquee is about Derek Stevens and come on down to, the sports casino, and there's sports betting, right? It's legal. So MLB is profiting off of this. But what they're doing is they're putting their players in danger. There needs to be a better way. There needs to be a better way to regulate this or figure it out where these people are at, because I've seen people get threatened at a stadium and somebody doxes them, which I'm not recommending this in these two cases where they dox this person and get this person fired for their job. What I'm asking for MLB to do is to really launch an investigation and find out who these people are, right? Because they can do it. If any little internet sleuth can find somebody and get them fired from their job like they did with that gentleman that was having that issue in Green Bay who said those nasty things to that woman, which was another case of fans getting into it in the stands and going a little too far, right? Even if they asked for it, even if they were egging them on, even if they were, baiting them into it, don't engage, right? As hard as it is, do not engage. But again, going back to the sports betting thing, they get profit from this. So they're going to put somebody's life in danger to what? To profit off of this. Get these people security, find out who this person is, because you don't know. We live in a world now that is so crazy that you do not know if these people will make good on this. What is MLB doing to ensure Liam Hendricks and his family that they're safe, that this moron, this idiot, doesn't do anything? Same thing with Lance McCullers, right? This happened a few weeks ago. I haven't heard anything else about the incident. But they need to find out what's going on. But this is all tied to betting. Somebody lost big on these two games. And they think, well, let me threaten this person's life because my life's about to end because I bet big and I lost big. I lost everything but minus my underwear. Like, come on. This is getting too, this is getting just too, going too far. People are getting a little too bold in what they can and can't say nowadays to these athletes, to these people. Feel how you want to feel, say what you want to say, have your hot takes, but I'm not going that far, right? It's like White Sox are not my favorite team, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go wish somebody death on their team because I don't want them to beat the Cubs or whatever. That's just too much. We need to get these people checked out in the head like they're not okay. And I'm not certainly, making fun of people who have mental health issues, right? I have a brother, he has mental health issues, so that's not what I'm saying. I'm not putting down somebody who has mental health issues. I'm simply saying if somebody has a serious gambling issue or a serious mental health issue tied into, gambling, right, where they lose it anytime they lose big, that's something that should be explored. That's something that MLB needs to look into. And they should do whatever they need to do to figure out, you know, who placed this bet and who is this person. Because this person has a social media tag, right? They tag this person or they put something on social media. They should track it down, just like they do if somebody they found out somebody within the sport was betting. They do their investigation. I don't know where it's at. I'm going to continue to follow this just to figure out if they're doing anything else or if they're just like, ignore this guy. I want to find out what they're doing about this because this is getting too bold, right? People are getting too bold. And you may say, well, David, you know, they're outside. These people are inside. I don't know if you guys seem to remember that incident that happened at the rate or guaranteed rate field Comiskey. I think it was last year or 2 years before, 2022, I think it might have been, or 2023 for that matter. I'm stuck in 2024. I'm sorry. I know it's 2025. So 2023 or 2024, I think there was an incident with a fan who snuck a gun into the rate and it went off and she shot herself, as I understand. Um, Luckily, she survived. She snuck it under, I guess, her stomach. I don't want to be disrespectful, where somebody said something a little different, but the person was a little heavy set and was able to sneak it. I guess we know that compartment of the stomach. I don't want to say anything and be mean because I'm not trying to shame anyone, right? Um, so you never know, right? And they have metal detectors. I don't know how she got through the metal detectors with that gun. I don't know, right? We don't know. We don't know. We live in a crazy world, and things have happened at sporting events before. And I know that security is different now, due to the state of the world we live in. But yeah, it's just it's a shame because it's all tied to betting. It's all betting, and which is going to let me segue into my next subject. Pete Rose, right? You're like, oh, he's going to go there. Yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm not saying that Pete Rose's personal life or what he did outside the sport besides betting should not influence whether he gets into the Hall of Fame or not. I'm not going to tell you yes or no on how I feel because it really is up to the writers. It doesn't matter if I say no. At the end of the day, it's up to the writers, the people that make those votes or make those decisions for the Hall of Fame. Nor am I going to say yes, he should be in it. Do his numbers say he should be in it? Absolutely. But what's keeping him out is one, the betting and how he addressed that admission of the betting, and also things that happened outside in his personal life that came out through, you know, statements, people, witnesses who were part of it. And his documentary that came out last year through Max, I believe it was HBO Max, whatever you want to call it. Now they changed their name so much. We'll just call it HBO Max for now. But that's not for me to decide. I mean, if we're going to become the moral police as far as Hall of Fame betting, in that sense, if those writers are going to become the moral police, then we need to go back and start looking at some of the morally questionable things that some people that are in the Hall of Fame already have done. That's all I'm going to say. That doesn't give you the answer that I say he should be. I'm simply telling you from that aspect as his numbers say he should be, but his personal life say he shouldn't. So all I'm saying is we're flaunting this betting, right? On every other commercial, right? Whether it be DraftKings, whatever it is, right? There's legal sports betting. MLB is profiting off of it. I get it that nobody within the sport is betting that we know of, right? I'm not going to go into the Otani thing. Otani aside. How can we know for sure that nobody within the sport is betting, right? there's definitely ways for you to just trust me. There's just ways. I'm not going to go into all the ways of that, but there's definitely ways for somebody to do it. Not saying that if they found, I don't know, 10 years down the line that Otani did take place in this betting, it just wasn't his assistant, right? Will then that tarnish his legacy, whatever that legacy is going to be 10 years down the line? I'm not saying that this is something against Pete Rose personally. I'm simply saying you're flaunting the very thing that he is banned from, right? And I get it; it's legal, right? Me, I as a consumer, as a fan, can bet on sports, whether it be MLB, NFL, NBA, whatever that I can bet on, right? Horse racing, the whole gamut of what I can bet on, right? Me as a fan can't do that, right? That's fine, but we really, really, really need to look into what does this really mean for the sport, right? At what point does the sport say, hey, we're benefiting from this? Are we really going to launch an investigation to figure out who's clean and who's not? Right? They're not gonna, because they'd have to go down a rabbit hole. So I'm simply saying that if we're going to become the moral police and say, well, we're not keeping him out because of his numbers, we're keeping him out because how he handled the betting when he wouldn't admit that he did it until years later when he supposedly uh, profited off of it, which he did. It was, I would say supposedly. Let's scratch that. Let's strike that supposedly. He did profit off of that admission in the book he wrote, right? Okay, that's fine. No problem. But then again, he's had issues when they've tried to slowly welcome him back. Things have come out. He was welcomed back for, I believe, the 2016 postseason, and I remember he was working for Fox, and then something came out about him and a young lady, uh, minor, I'm going to say it, and he was let go by Fox. Um, the incident that happened when the Phillies invited him back, and he had that issue with the reporter, the female reporter from the Phillies. I'm not saying that Pete Rose was a saint. Everybody knows, right? I'm 43 years old. I never got to see Pete Rose really play. I remember vividly things when I was a little kid, but I wouldn't say I saw his career, right? So I'm not sitting here trying to pass a moral judgment on Pete Rose because we all know nobody's perfect. And I know that he has suffered a lot of scrutiny, and rightfully so, for these things. I'm not saying that these things are right, what he did, but I'm saying if we're going to play the moral police and say he doesn't belong in there because of his personal, his personal life, that's perfectly fine, right? That is up to those writers. That is up to those people that make those decisions to put him in or not, right? All I'm saying is if we're going to be the moral police, then where's that going to stop? Where are we going to draw the line? I'm simply asking you guys to really just think about what I'm saying right now. Is when it's time for Barry Bonds to have that conversation about Barry Bonds, which I know he's eligible because I think it's after 5 years after you played. How long were you going to keep Barry Bonds out? How long are you going to keep Mark McGwire out? Right? Barry Bonds broke Hank Aaron's home run record, and there's a lot of scrutiny or a lot of debate about whether when he broke it, how juiced to the gills was this guy? Did he legitimately break this record? So these are the things that I'm saying. We're gonna have to judge this against other things, right? Not saying, right, we can't say this is bad, but this is worse, right? Bad is bad. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not, and I hope that this doesn't cause any controversy and people don't send me, my listeners don't send me hate text or hate comments on this post through Spotify. I'm just simply trying to get you guys to just think at the broader picture. Um, how far do we take this, this moral judgment on these players? That's all I'm asking you guys to think about, and I'm gonna let you guys ruminate on that for a little bit. Think about that, and if you guys want to comment on it, for sure. But again, in closing, I will say, at least on the Pete Rose part, is who else falls under that Pete Rose moral judgment line that they're going to draw or they want to draw? My next topic I want to talk about is the Cubs with the White Sox. They had a series last week. I wish I could have talked about it last weekend, or I should say last weekend. The Crosstown Classic, the round one, which was on the Wrigley side. Next time they're going to play at Comiskey or Sox Park or Rate, whatever they call it now. Um, and I actually, besides the Cubs sweeping, which is great, go Cubs, I really, really, really enjoyed watching that series because I got a chance to actually go listen to Steve Stone call a game, right? I don't mind the marquee guys; they're perfectly fine. I love the marquee guys. I think they're great. Um, but I just miss Steve Stone. I just love listening to Steve Stone talk about baseball. And that man is just so insightful. And it just brings me back to my childhood, listening to him and Harry Carey call a Cubs game. But it's him and John Sheffrin. Hope I'm saying his name right. I'm not listening so much for Sheffrin because Sheffrin he has his fans, and I say that very tongue in cheek. I just love listening to Steve Stone call a ball game. Like that man just tells you a story. He tells you what's going on, and I love his insight into the game. So it was kind of cool for that. But I also enjoyed seeing some of these guys that the Sox have, right? Like who are these kids, right? I got to see a kid who I only heard about because a ball hit him upside the head. I think a few weeks ago or like a month ago when he was trying to catch a pop fly. Chase Madroff, and I hope I'm saying his name right. Don't mean to just. I always want to make sure that I say these players' names right because I don't want to disrespect their name. Chase Madroff or Mydroff, I think is that. I think how they pronounce it. That kid's good. He's good. And again, he could just be going through a hot streak, and then the league adjusts to him, and then he starts going through a slump. But that's just part of baseball, right? Like it just that's how the you know average players or good players turn great players, right? They learn how to adjust. They adjust to the adjustment. He looked good, and that's not on you know how he hit against us. He looks like they drafted a pretty good kid. Also, Elko, who just got sent back to Charlotte, I understand last night, which I don't understand that, but that's another topic for another time. If at least you know what, let me get into that topic now because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into this topic again. Does White Sox know what they are looking for this year? At least the management, the ownership, the general manager knows what they're looking for next year or this year, I should say. Excuse me, scratch that. This year, they know what they're looking for, right? They know they're not going to make the playoffs, right? Unless there's some sort of miraculous turnaround. They're not making the playoffs. They're looking to maybe take this year to evaluate, as they should, some of these younger kids. And I know that they owe Vaughn some money, right? And I don't know how much money Vaughn is owned, but he's owed some money, whatever that money is. And I'm sorry I didn't do the research on that. But why not give this kid a chance, right? They're taking at bats away from him, and maybe they think he can get more at bats down at Charlotte, right? Like they did with Matt Shaw was a little different story, so maybe I can't compare it to Matt Shaw, but maybe like a Pete Crow Armstrong when they sent him back down, they figure maybe he can make some adjustments and get more at bats, and he's not just warming the bench. But I was interesting seeing him, seeing Vargas, and seeing a lot of this young talent they have, and it's what are they going to do with this young talent? Are they really truly going to evaluate them this year? Um, but I really just enjoyed watching the series, and again, had the series gone the other way, I'm sure that there would have been a lot of chatter about the Cubs should have beaten the White Sox. They shouldn't have gotten swept by them. Cubs swept. Let's say it's the alternative, the Sox sweep. Right? There would have been a lot of talk. I'd have been like, "Hey, what happened?" I'd have probably wondered. I mean, those are the teams you should beat, right? Those are the teams that should beat. Teams like the Marlins, which they took 2 out of 3 from them this week, they should have swept, but we know what happened with that first game. The Rockies coming up. Cincinnati, they've always played them hard. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Cubs swept them, but 2 out of 3 is probably what they're going to get this weekend. But getting back to the Cubs and White Sox, the one thing I want to talk about, and it literally legitimately made me laugh. It legitimately made me laugh, and I can't get mad at Ozzie Guillen anymore as much as I used to when he used to be a manager for the White Sox. Um, he's very funny, and if you guys don't get a chance to watch his post game show with Chuck Garfien, if you guys can't find the channel because you guys don't have an antenna, or if you don't have an antenna, have cable, they obviously don't have that channel on cable. Go on YouTube after the Sox games and look for that Chicago Sports Network or whatever it is that they're called that they're on, that the Blackhawks, the Bulls are on with them. There's always maybe like an hour after the game. There's always a post game show, and they have like an abbreviated one because they obviously don't have the commercials on. There's just them talking about it. Um, he's so funny. They're both so funny on there. And after the Sunday game between the Cubs and the White Sox, there was an incident where Brad Keller hit Miguel Vargas from the White Sox, and I think Vargas took exception to it. And I wondered because again, I'm listening on the radio. I'm not watching the game. I'm listening on the radio. I was coming home from church, when that play happened. I'm like, I wonder what happened. It can't be because Vargas has been, hitting them pretty good all weekend, right? And it's taken him deep, I think, twice. I think it was in that Friday game. It was in the Saturday game. I think he went deep twice. I was like, could it be because of that? But the Cubs are winning. Who cares, right? I'm thinking like, if the Cubs ordered this, that's kind of petty. Like it was, I kind of felt like that's stupid. Or if it's Vargas and the White Sox are saying, well, we're going to lose this game. Let me at least try to show some fight and try to find up the boys in the dugout or whatever. Maybe start a fight and see if we can win this. I know, and if not technically we win this game, but at least a moral victory, right? And so that's kind of silly and petty too. But it's Cubs White Sox. Sometimes they can get into it, right? What made me laugh with Ozzy was upset that there wasn't a melee or there wasn't a fight, that there wasn't somebody charging out to the mound, that there wasn't a fight, or that the Cubs didn't get drilled. And I thought it was funny, and it wasn't because, hey, how petty, how dumb you are, Ozzy Gator. It wasn't that. I thought it was funny because that shows how old school he is. And then he also kind of sort of chuckled at himself too. He's like, maybe that's why I'm not managing anymore. It's because of my thoughts of this. He felt that they should have drilled two players, right? They should have drilled PCA and Dansby Swanson. I'm thinking, okay, I could see PCA. What the heck does Dansby Swanson have to do with this, right? Like, you drill their best player, as of last weekend, the guy that was the best player at that point, or was really hot for the Cubs, was PCA. So I can see that, but I'm just like, I had to and break it down, right? Because Chuck Garfien thought it was kind of funny. He's like, well, people could get injured. There's going to be a melee. And he's like, I don't care. That's just the way I was taught. That's the way I was taught by Tony La Russa and all the other managers that I've had. That's just the way I taught my boys. It's just one of our guys gets hit. You take out one of our guys, we take out two of yours. And that's very old school. That's okay, right? But I thought they're going to have one more series, right? Ozzy may get his wish. They're going to have one more series when they go down to the South Side. Here's the thing, right? Both teams actually have a lot to lose. And you're like, well, what does the Sox have to lose? So if some guy gets suspended or gets hurt, who cares? No, they have a lot to lose because this can continue over several series. They're playing two series. This can continue to next year. Like, well, what the heck does that matter? What do I got to worry about next year? Look, the Cubs have at least a window that they see that's open for them right now, at least for this year, to get into the playoffs. Right, as of now, they're a playoff team. Right, they're first in their division. They're 30-20. They're 10 games or 500. They can go the other way. Right, like it's still a long season to go. Right, we're not even at Memorial Day yet. As of Monday, they call that sort of like the beginning of summer, maybe like almost like a halfway point, or we start getting into the summer where we start talking about what teams are really going to contend and what are we going to do at the trade deadline. But if I'm the Cubs, I would hope that they're ready for somebody to get drilled and say, okay, that's it. That's the receipt for hitting Vargas, and that's it. And don't keep escalating it. Well, I was trying to find out what happened. And again, if that call came from the third base coach, because that third base coach from the Sox was scoring off on the umpire at third base. And I'm like, what the heck happened? What did I miss? At some point, I must have missed something. The Cubs didn't talk about it in their post game. The Sox talked about it on their post game, and then it came up with Matt Spiegel and Holmes on their show on the Score on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Monday, where they guess they got some intel from Darren Jackson and Len Casper, who are the radio announcers for the White Sox. Turns out that there's some sort of issue between Vargas and Keller. Let's forget all that. The issue that they took issue with was Vargas was blocking the third baseman, and I can't remember who the third baseman was. So when Pete Crow Armstrong, PCA caught the ball, he was blocking, and he couldn't see the signs, right, from the third base coach. So maybe the third base coach from the Cubs called that. Who knows? I don't know, because Ozzy, and I also agree with Ozzy, Council's not going to do that. That call didn't come from Council. That didn't come from the dugout. That either came because Keller decided to do that on his own, or because the third base coach called it from the Cubs. Now, it's something that's, they call it like one-upsmanship, right? Where you can where it's frowned upon for you to steal signs if you're at second base and you're actually you're looking right at the pitcher who's literally right behind you, or I'm sorry, right in front of you, second baseman, or the person on second base is actually right behind the pitcher to steal signs, right? To be able to look at the pitcher the way he's got a grip, also to look at the catcher to steal signs. It's not it's not exactly illegal, but it's sort of frowned upon, right? So pitchers take issue to that, and so do catchers, right? Take issue to you stealing signs. The answer to that is always change the signs, right? In this case, it was one upmanship to say, hey, I'm going to block you. I'm not going to let you see these signs. From the third base coach, is the guy going or not? Whatever, right? There's just some sort of just one upmanship, kind of just trying to stick it to the Cubs. And if that's the case, you should have just let it go. You guys are already winning the game. You guys are about to sweep and just let it go. But just, I think of this melee and I just think of just like something out of like that movie, The Naked Gun, just baseball players just flying over the shoulders and throwing everybody over, and there's just giant melee. All you're gonna do is get players hurt and people suspended. And maybe the Sox don't care because they're not going anywhere, but the Cubs should also take that into mind. I'm just simply telling you, this is what I'm going to go into my wrestling thing here, my wrestling bag. There's a gentleman in wrestling. For those who don't watch wrestling, his name is Paul Heyman. For the guys that do, guys and girls who do watch wrestling, or my audience that does watch wrestling, know who's Paul Heyman when he says, I'm giving you a spoiler, not a prediction. So this is now a spoiler and not a prediction, right? I'm telling you right now, whether PCA is leading off or PCA is batting, whatever, PCA is getting drilled in this next series for sure. Whether it's intentional or they make it seem like it was oops, it slipped, he's getting drilled. And there's going to be a fight because it depends who they drill. I'm not sure how Tucker's going to react, right? I'm thinking best players on the team. Don't know how Tucker will react. I kind of think if Happ is still leading off, Happ might take a little issue. He might charge. I don't know. There's guys in that team for sure that I know got a little fight in them, but I guarantee you, PCA gets drilled. PCA is going to charge that mound, and I do not recommend he charge that mound, right? Let it go, steam, spew, whatever you want to spew, and say what you want to say as you're taking your base at first. As long as it's not in the head, or don't go for the head, please. Hit him in the thigh, hit him in the butt, hit him in the ribs, the back, right? And I'm not saying that that feels any better, but please don't go head hunting. Please. I do not want to see a series where we go head hunting and it turns into a Yankees Red Sox thing where, if you guys remember back in the playoffs and Yankees Red Sox where Don Zimmer got slammed to the ground by Pedro Martinez. I don't want to see that. And I'm not talking about a coach trying to get in between. I don't want to see that. Because you know where that carries over to? That carries actually over to the stands. These fans are already fighting in the bleachers. They're fighting in the upper deck and the nosebleeds. They're having all kind of just melees up there. Don't, because that just carries over, and that's just ugly. I don't want to see that. But again, regardless, a good series, and hopefully this thing just gets swept under the rug, and we're good. Right? One more guy gets drilled, and we say we take it as a receipt, and we go on. So this is a high situation. Going to switch topics for just a minute because I don't want to forget about this. So I'm going to go and come back to the baseball topic or topics in a moment. I want to talk about basketball really quick, just very short. I told you I was going to come in hot on this one. Good luck to the Pacers, the Knicks, the Thunder, and the Timberwolves in their series. Regardless, we're going to get a unique NBA Finals matchup, so good luck to those cities and those teams. I don't have a dog in the fight, so whoever it is, go for whoever you want to go for. What I want to come in is this is a few weeks in the making, and like I said, I really wish I could do this on a weekly basis so I wouldn't have to come with him. Old take. I've talked about this before on previous podcast episodes, and I'm going to say it now. After the end of this Lakers playoff run or playoff series that they had with the Warriors, I'm sorry, it was with the Timberwolves. It wasn't with the Warriors. I apologize. With the Timberwolves. I don't ever want to hear the word GOAT and then LeBron James followed by it, other than saying LeBron James does not belong in the GOAT conversation. The man's excuse of saying that they didn't win the series because they were without a center. Whose fault is that? That's yours. I'll come back to that. and I mean yours is LeBron. Then he said he hurt his knee on that collision. That flop, but you'll say it's a collision. I call it a flop, right? The man's in Hollywood. He's got a career after his basketball after his basketball career is over, whether it's this year or whatever he decides to hang up his shoes and say he calls it a career. That man has a heck of a career in Hollywood because that man is such a good actor. You get hit and you flop around like a fish out of water. Don't even get me started. I'm about to get off my subject. You see how hot this man makes me sometimes as far as like a basketball conversation? This dude makes me just hot of how big like crybaby and a flopper he is. But don't ever put that man in that conversation again. The last time Michael Jordan played a game was 21 years ago. 21 to 22 years ago. This man is still being talked about. And I'm not even talking about old takes, right? I'm talking about there's still players, modern players, still talking about this man. Jordan's name is still in these people's mouths. They just interviewed Craig Hodges on a podcast. If everybody remembers Craig Hodges from that first Bulls run, right? 3-point shooter. He was still talking about Michael. They asked about Michael. That man was talking about this man like he was just this aura was around him, the way he would talk about him. There's still people talking about Jordan. Nobody talks about LeBron like the way they talk about Jordan. Even when this man leaves the game, they're not going to talk about him. People respect LeBron James, and this is a quote from somebody. People feared Michael Jordan. Find how many people are going to tell you they feared that man. And again, I talked about this at the beginning of the episode. So I'm not going to go into the sacrilege where people have called Jordan Black Jesus that he walks on water. I'm not going to go there, but I'm not going to go and tell somebody not to, right? Reggie Miller famously called him Black Jesus, and there was other people that said that. You know, that wasn't Michael Jordan. That was God disguised as Michael Jordan. So I laugh about it. I don't take, that bad of offense to it. Being a Christian myself, I just find it kind of funny, but I get what they're saying. I get their point. But I don't ever want to hear about this man being a GOAT conversation. I don't care how many points this man scores. That man will never, ever, ever, ever compare himself and can't compare himself to Michael Jeffrey Jordan. It's just not going to happen. The man is a flopper. The man's a crybaby. The man breaks teams up. And let me go full circle back around. The reason they do not have a center, that Luka trade was orchestrated by LeBron James. There is no way you're going to tell me that this man did not know this trade was going to happen. He asked for this trade to happen, just like he asked for J.J. Redick to be the coach. J.J. Redick is not qualified to be an NBA coach. The man was a player, a decent one at best, but he is not qualified to coach a team. Now, if he came in as an assistant coach and worked his way into that head coaching circle, fine, no problem. The man got interviewed for the job by LeBron James. You say, what are you talking about, David? He got interviewed by LeBron James. They used to have a podcast together. He started asking him questions that you can read between the lines to say, if you were the coach, what would you do? And he must have answered the questions right, because guess what? LeBron said, hey, this is the guy I want as coach. Get rid of that other guy, whatever his name is, because I'm not even going to commit it to name. There's a rotating carousel of coaches with that man there. Don't call that man the GOAT. That man is not the GOAT. That man is a joke. That man doesn't even qualify to even be talked about in that conversation. I've told you guys before, he's not even in my top 50 of best players in the NBA. You must be saying, dude, are you crazy? I'm even going to go find me somebody on the Lakers that is not as good as LeBron, right? Pass. I'm talking about pass, right? Right? We're talking about pass. The man that he passed out for points, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Put him ahead of him. Did you guys forget about Irvin Magic Johnson? Or I'm going to tell you something. How about a gentleman that was named by the name of the Black Mamba? That wasn't just a cute little nickname he had. Kobe Bryant legit was a student of Michael Jordan. He was a student. He would bother him. Go find interviews on YouTube of Michael Jordan talking about Kobe Bryant. He called him his little brother, right? And he called Jordan Big Brother, right? Kobe was a disciple of Michael Jordan in that sense of basketball. He would bother him, call him at 3 a.m. That man's work ethic was out of this world. LeBron is not the GOAT. not even within his own organization. Past, not even present. Past. That man is not the GOAT. That man is wearing that Lakers uniform. That man is a fraud. I don't care what you say. That man is a bum. I never want to hear about that man ever again in a GOAT conversation about a Mount Rushmore. Nothing. I don't want to hear it. I don't. I'm done. I never want to hear this man in that conversation again because that man is a joke. That's all I got to say. That's my hot take. LeBron is a joke. And when he retires, he deserves his flowers on the way out. Give that man a retirement tour. I never want to see that man again. Right? They're paying Michael Jordan $40 million, I believe. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could even have that number wrong, just to be a special contributor when the NBA returns on NBC. I don't see LeBron, money aside, I don't see LeBron ever doing that because LeBron is part of that school, and he's not the only one, of I only want you to give me praise. I don't want to hear any criticism because he cannot handle criticism, right? Oh, talk about me, but don't talk about my son. Wait a minute. Okay, but you brought him into the league. You had the Lakers draft your son, right? You brought the scrutiny on him. You said he was better than a percentage of the NBA players. You put a target on your own son's back. So don't give me this crap about you could talk about me, but you can't talk about my son. He's going to have to learn how to take the heat, right? You got to let him grow into a man. Unless they're threatening him physically, and God forbid, like I talked about the baseball thing, don't go there. Say what you want to say about the kid, but don't threaten him physically. Don't send him any death threats. And not that I know that he's gotten any, but let's not go there, right? And that's what I'm saying. I could talk about the man, but I'm not going to go on social media and threaten LeBron James. What for? What is that going to do for me? Nothing, right? I'm simply telling you the man does not belong in the GOAT conversation. And if there's ever a topic of it coming back up again, I'll talk about it. But this is probably going to be the last time I'm ever going to talk about this conversation about the GOAT. That man does not belong in that conversation. That man is a joke. Back to baseball. There was a take recently on the score. Gentleman who has a podcast with a guy named Crawley, Dustin Crawley, I think. His nickname is Crawley. I can't remember his last name. Is it Dustin? I think his name is Dustin. I can't remember, but I know that the gentleman from the Score's name is Dustin Rhodes. It sounds like a wrestler's name, which that's a wrestler's name, but it's his name. He is a producer on the Score, and he had this great take about he was tired of hearing about Jameson Taillon his quality starts. Yeah, Jameson Taillon gets touched up a lot, right? But he felt like it was just some sort of sponsorship. I don't want to hear Marquis say, well, that was a quality start from this guy. That was a quality start from Jameson Taillon. Well, let me school you a little bit, young man, because I don't know if he's older than me or if he's younger than me, but I'm going to call him a young man anyways, right? Let me school you on this, Mr. Rhodes. A quality start is actually a term that's in the MLB glossary that means that the starter has gone 6 innings, at the very least 6 innings, and has allowed 3 runs or less. That's why they said he had a quality start. They don't do it for everybody. They do it for everybody who fits in that criteria. But this man wanted to go on this hot take and say, well, that's hot garbage. Well, guess what? Not everybody's going to be Paul Skeens. Not everybody's going to pitch a shutout. It happens. They're facing Major League Baseball teams. Look, just because it wasn't the Dodgers, it wasn't the Padres, it wasn't these powerhouse teams, that's still a Major League team. You need to respect that roster. That roster still needs to get respected, right? So if he gets touched up, he gets touched up. But if he's pitching 6 innings, at the very least 6 innings, and it's 3 runs or less, that is considered a quality start by MLB standards. Go talk to the MLB. Don't come trying to tell us that that's hot garbage. Then guess what? Then go tell that to Jameson Taillon, right? You have connections, right? Through the Score. That's where they broadcast the game. Why don't you go sit down with Jameson Taillon and say, hey, I think you pitch hot garbage. You're not. You're going to make a take on the radio and say, well, this guy is hot garbage. Now, if I had the platform, would I say some of these hot takes to these people? Yes. And what are they going to tell me? They're going to tell me to F off. They're going to tell me get out of my face. That's it, right? That's the end of it. But at least I got my opinion out there, right? So instead of sitting behind a microphone and, complaining and moaning that they're tired of hearing these sponsored, like you have to say it, that he had a quality start. No, they said it because he met the criteria, goofball. Like if somebody hits for the cycle, That's because that's what was defined by MLB what a cycle is. Not because they said, well, Dansby Swanson hit it for the cycle. No, he didn't. He got a single and a double. Where's the home run and the triple? But these guys always want to have these hot takes because, man, I want to go viral, or I want somebody to come at me in my social media. These people sometimes need to understand that when you make a hot take, but also understand what you're saying, right? I'm not saying that Jameson Taillon, I'm defending him. He's had some bad starts, and he gets touched up a lot. So I'm not defending the guy, but if we're going to talk about criteria of quality start, that's what a quality start is. So let me educate, you guys, and educate this gentleman at the score, who's a producer, who wanted to, volley his opinion. And he also does a podcast on the Cubs. And that doesn't mean that you can't be critical of the Cubs. I'm critical of the Cubs sometimes. And I love them. They're my favorite team. But come on. When you're going to make a hot take, make sure that you don't end up looking like a jerk. Because guess what? When you assume things, you know what that acronym says, right? When you assume things, you make an ass out of you and me, right? Don't assume things. So don't go on assuming things, Mr. Rhodes. As far as my hot take or my final topic for this podcast, let's talk about owners. I've talked about owners before and cheap owners, and this one is miraculously not about Mr. Ricketts. Even though, my opinion on Mr. Ricketts, this is actually about the Pirates and the Rockies, specifically the Rockies. The Rockies are 8-42 right now, right? And I saw an article not too long ago from The Athletic talking about people still wanting to go to Coors Field because of the experience, right? The experience of what? Watching the other team beat on your team because you're not certainly there to watch the Rockies. And I said, can't be. Well, there's a season ticket holder who goes because he loves the experience, and it's a tradition. Well, God bless you, sir. I hope that you continue to enjoy the experience of your 8-42 team. And I don't know how much season tickets are for the Rockies. I did do some research on individual tickets, which I'll get into in a little bit. But that owner's not going to spend any money until he totally sees that stadium practically empty, or with more fans of the opposing team than fans of the home team. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. But it's a shame, right? It's a shame. And I'm going to tie all this into the betting. Part of that betting, that the revenue that they get from that MLB, there's revenue sharing in that. And within that revenue sharing, if I'm not mistaken, um, let's see here. Let's see. So they share it with the 30 teams, right? Amongst the 30 teams. And I know I had a number here for revenue sharing as far as what they got. So the Rockies actually get about $90 million. So it says here the Rockies, out of all the teams, receive a portion of MLB's national revenues through a revenue sharing estimated to be around $90 million per team. So we'll say they get about 90 million, right? We'll say 85 just to be safe here, right? They get about $90 million, which again, you would say it's not a lot in this market, right? But you're telling me, what are they doing with this $90 million, right? Are they pocketing it? What are they doing? He refuses to put a winning product on the field, just like the Pirates owner refuses to put a winning product on the field. And I get it that some of these players it's astronomical. What some of these players are asking for, right? But how are these other teams getting these players that they're taking a flyer on? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And again, I don't mean to come back to the Cubs, but that's who I have a more familiarity with, and I apologize if I don't have better data. But I don't know. Right now, Matthew Boyd looks pretty good. So does Colin Ray, right? I don't know. They can go the other way, right? They can have a really good first half of the season, and the second half of the season, they can go into the toilet. I don't know that. But the Cubs decided to take a flyer on these two guys, right? There's other teams that take these flyers or chances, I should say, on these pitchers and players to see if maybe they can get something out of them, right? Gives the fans something competitive to come and see. They don't have a competitive product because they know the fans are going to come out no matter what. What doesn't make sense to me is the prices of these tickets. So I decided to go into it, and I saw that they're playing the Astros the week before the weekend of July 4th. So July 1st through the 3rd, the Rockies are playing the Houston Astros. Tickets for those games, there's 2 weekday night games and 1, I believe, day game, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're playing those games, right? Um, the tickets are like $15, which is not bad. Then I decided to dig in a little more. I said, I wonder if they charge more for holidays, right? Like if there's a holiday weekend, do they charge more for those games? It's a premium. So the Rockies on July 4th are actually going to be playing the White Sox. For the upper deck, it's $46.60. That's before tax. If you want to sit on the first base side, it's $138.60. So sit on the first base side to see the Rockies and the White Sox. Between now and then, I want to actually put a note for myself on the phone to check where that record's going to be on July 4th. Because if both of these teams are in the toilet, specifically the Rockies are even further down that toilet bowl, and you're telling me that for me to go see a game between two very, very bad teams, last place in the toilet, competing for who's going to have the worst record in Major League Baseball, which looks like the Rockies might actually surpass the White Sox as the worst team in Major League Baseball or have the worst record in Major League Baseball history this year. You're about to go see history. Maybe they're charging you for history. That's what it probably is, right? But if this owner has the nerve to charge you $46.60, and these prices were already set before the season started. So did he have some grand illusion that the Rockies were going to be good and that game at least was going to at least show you a good Rockies team? There's no way he was going to think that both of these teams at that July 4th mark were going to be any good for him to set that price. So you're setting it because there are going to be fireworks after the game? There is. Are you doing that for that? So I'll set the cost of that? It is a shame what these owners are doing to Major League Baseball. They are crying poor and they're pocketing this money because I know that they're making revenue, whether it be concessions, whatever it is that they're getting from Major League Baseball, from revenue sharing and from the betting, right? They have to split it in between 1.1 billion that they're going to make off of betting. That is just off of betting. Plus the other revenue sharing that they're getting from concessions and other things, they revenue share between each other. That is a shame. That is a crying shame. And I want guys like Ken Rosenthal. I want guys like Chris Rose and all the guys that I listen to through my podcast and through videos. I want these guys, AJ Brzezinski and his guys, at his podcast that he does. I want them to just keep drilling this and drilling this and drilling this and drilling this and drilling this, because it has to become a thing where you're telling me that there's about to be a strike in about a year to year and a half. For what? Why is there going to be a strike? The owners want a salary floor, but it's going to be hard for you to convince these people to give you a salary floor when you won't even freaking spend the money they're giving you now. Give me a break. Wake up. I'm tired of hearing the haves and the have-nots. I get it. The Dodgers have that TV contract, but stop crying poor. I'm so tired of talking about these owners crying poor. Your team is about to be, and they predicted that if they keep this pace, they will finish the season 75 games out of first place. I did not stutter. Listen to me one more time. 75 games out of first place for the Colorado Rockies. That is dreadful. You can fire the managers like they did with the Rockies and the Pirates. And just like Dave Roberts said, and I hate to agree with this man because you know how I feel about Dave Roberts. They said that not even who was the manager that he said that couldn't manage his team? Sparky Anderson. He said not even Sparky Anderson. And I think I might have the wrong manager, but I'm going to tell you, not even Sparky Anderson could manage these teams to a winning record. The the rosters are atrocious. The pitching, I mean, just pitching, everything. The roster's just atrocious. I'm not even going to get into it, right? Aside of Paul Skeens, who Jared Jones is about to have Tommy John surgery, so that's minus one power pitcher they're missing. Paul Skeens cannot pitch every game. Eventually, Paul Skeens is going to get traded. Maybe not this year because they're denying that they're going to do it this year. But who knows, right? He's going to get traded. He's going to get traded to a team that's going to be a juggernaut. And I don't want to say it, but it might be the Dodgers. I'm not saying it, but it might be the Dodgers. It might be the Cubs. It might be the Phillies. It might be the Mets. Who knows, right? Whoever is going to be the highest bidder. But they're going to trade this man. Because if this man goes into free agency, and he keeps up that pace he's at, that man's going to get a record contract for a pitcher. But I'm telling you, the Pirates, I hope, are not that dumb. That if they do have to trade him, and I hope that they don't and they build around him, and I'm saying this as a Cubs fan, right? Because you like to see competitiveness. I don't know. I just don't see. I don't see what you asked for a Paul Skeens, right? What are you going to ask for a Paul Skeens? Are you going to get fleeced, right? Again, or are you just what are you guys going to do? It's just stuff for you guys to ponder. I know I gave you guys threw a lot of hot takes at you guys today, but it's getting pretty bad with baseball and these owners when we're seeing these teams that it's almost like a minor league team you're playing. So those are my thoughts for this week, and I will see you guys in the next.